Welcome to another episode of Growth Marketers Podcast. I'm Solomon Timothy.
And I am Taylor Rowe. Today's episode was a questions from the listeners. I think it's questions that a lot of marketers and business owners, small businesses, even large enterprises struggle with. So we did our best to answer them and also provide some other advice along the way. So hope you guys enjoy.
So today, Taylor, we got a couple questions from our audience that I wanted to just use it as a, Q&A session.
Perfect.
Give them the best answers that we can since, these are, I think, really important questions for any marketing, folks. So here we go. I think we should start with the first one and then we go one after another. Exactly. So this it's a business owner. I don't want to give any names or anything. It says, I have a limited budget. Should I spend it on social ads or Google ads?
That's a great question.
I know, right? It's like, what do you tell them?
I'll let you start with that.
What do you tell them? Well, I mean, I could.
What do you think?
So first of all, I think one of our episodes we're going to do is about paid, owned, and shared, and earned, and all of those things. And I believe in a holistic marketing strategy. I never just say, do one, promotional products, and that's your marketing. I've seen a lot of companies do that, or buy billboards, and that's marketing, or do Google ads, and that, I only do SEO, and that's the only marketing I do, or I only do email marketing. I like to do everything because you never know who you're missing out if you're not on a particular platform, right? As long as you have the bandwidth and the budget, you should be in multiple platforms because different people use different platforms. I mean, you might be hard to get a hold of me on email, but somebody else might be a lot more, email, and you're never going to get a hold of me on phone anymore. So that's out of the question, but you can probably get me if you're advertising on Instagram. So if this person is trying to figure out, should I do Google ads or Facebook ads? I think the first step is to figure out, well, what are they trying to accomplish before they pick the platform? It's not a choice of platform and then my product.
Right. It's tough without more context than that to give a recommendation, but it is something that, business owners struggle with all the time and are constantly asking us, it's tough, right? Because do you want us to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want to, know the truth, right? And the truth is I don't think you can say, okay, well, I have, 1 month to test this budget. Let me see what's better, and then make a conclusive decision on that this platform was better than another platform, or that digital marketing works or doesn't work, or, this platform works, this platform doesn't work. So whenever I hear that question, it's a lot of times I kind of pause for a second and, want to take 10 steps back and say, okay, well,
why are we doing this?
Yeah. Why is the budget limited? What are you expecting to accomplish? What are you hoping to learn? Right. I think that's the main thing is, when we say, okay, the budget's limited, say I only have $5,000. I want to see what I can get. Are you looking to drive traffic, drive emails? Are you looking to sell something? Are you looking to generate leads? Are you looking to become profitable? Are you looking to just test and analyze and understand the data of your audience? So it's really tough. So that would be the first thing is what is the budget and what are we trying to accomplish? What are we hoping to see with that budget? What happens if you don't reach that goal, right? If it is a limited budget and say, hey, it's limited because we've never done this before and we just want to test the waters, that's a different story than saying, hey, the budget is only $10,000 for the whole year or even $30,000 for the whole year. And if we don't make our money back,
we're going to go out of business.
Then that's we don't.
We always go to the extreme.
Yeah, but that is a lot of times when people and companies are investing into marketing. If you're not investing into marketing, early and often, it is almost like a Hail Mary at the end of the day. It's like, okay, sales are down this quarter.
So let's go market
down 3 out of 4 quarters, or 3 years out of 4 years, or even longer, and let's go see what we can do in these last, couple of months before our, cash flow runs out, and we need to.
That's like a startup, right? Like they have to make it work.
Yeah. So I guess because I want to make sure we answer this person's question, and I don't think we have quite yet. So I know we don't have a lot of details here, but let's look at some scenarios. So the question was about paid channels specifically, right?
Yeah, they don't want to
search versus social
ads.
So I think regardless of the budget, I guess the budget, maybe in this scenario, the budget constraint means we can do both.
Okay.
Assuming we can do both. Then I think, like you said, let's look at our audience and where we can reach them the best. So this has to do with your audience, your industry, and your offering, right? Because if you have for example, a very well-known audience, you know who your audience is, you have a known industry and people know, you have competitors you can identify that, you do something very similar to what you do. People are aware of this problem. They're actively out there looking, they're actively searching. Google Ads could be great for you. And probably the least risky when it comes to, gambling, if you will, on a small budget, because you only pay for people who are actively searching for your product or service when they click on it. So it's guaranteed traffic. If you set it up right, it's guaranteed traffic for people that are interested in your product or service. And that's pretty much all you can ask for as a marketer, right? Especially dealing with a limited budget. Now, the only caveat to that would be if your industry is extremely competitive, that can become a very costly click. And Google has no problem charging your credit card really, really quickly. And if it's $50, $60 a click and you only have $1,000 a month and spend, you might not get enough volume of leads to turn into any revenue. So you have to do that math equation as well. And again, without any context, it's hard to answer. But so that's one scenario, right? The other scenario is, how do I get in front of my audience for maybe more volume at a little bit cheaper cost? Then social could be great for that. So if you're trying to generate more awareness, more traffic, awareness about your product or your company, or really just your offering in general, if you're kind of breaking into a new product category and people aren't actively searching for it, then social ads could be a great way. But you also have to kind of understand the point at which those visitors or the users are going to be in their decision-making process, right? Social is a more passive channel. Doesn't mean they're necessarily actively searching for your offering. So if they see your ad, it needs to be more of a top of the funnel offer, something to introduce them, bring them to your website, convert them, but don't expect to see an immediate return on investment in most cases. Again, if we're talking about someone who's limited on budget, they have to make some assumptions there.
So I think back to this guy, he should do Google Ads, because I'm sure he's looking for an immediate return, because he's wondering, where should I put my money?
Right.
I think the only benefit on social is the lower cost per click. If you wanted more bang for your buck, you're going to get that on social today. But Google Ads is probably way more higher intent traffic, direct response,
and
get the lead.
To say, because again, if people are listening and they're just listening for something that they want to hear, they're looking for someone to tell them that, there's a magic formula. The pieces that someone's going to pick out of this is that, hey, you need an immediate return on investment, go to Google Ads. And I'm not saying that there's not some truth to that. It's really probably the only channel
where you
could see that. It doesn't mean that you're going to. It doesn't mean that you should not only invest into that channel over other channels, because other ones aren't going to see a return on investment. And it definitely doesn't mean that channel alone is going to perform in the best possible way to get you your return on your investment. So like you mentioned, you want to see a comprehensive strategy. You want to reach your audience wherever they might be at wherever stage in the buyer's journey that they're in. So paid search just happens to give you the ability to really target in on your audience at the very bottom of the funnel, which you might get some people to convert on that. But by skipping the rest of the process, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage against your competition. So.
Right, because they're always going to go to a company they recognize. They're going to say, well, I know this company. I'm going to click on their ad. And the higher the click-through rate, they end up paying a lower cost per click. There's a lot of variable to it, right? So, but again, you have limited budget. You can try everything anyway.
I heard a quote the other day that was, marketing is asking a girl out on a date, and branding is the reason she says yes. And so I think you think about that, right? If someone, you could say, hey, I have a Google ad, I'm running at the right time in front of the right person. I'm asking them to buy my product. Why aren't they buying my product at the same rate as this other brand? The other brand has a brand. They have a reputation. They, for whatever reason.
That brand is the football player.
Exactly. That brand.
That's how you get that yes.
Yeah, they said yes. So there's some truth to that. And I think, again, if you just try to jump to that bottom of the funnel, say, hey, I asked all these people to be my customers and nobody said yes. They
wonder
were looking
why.
for my service. I said, hey, I can do it.
Yeah.
But you didn't take them along that journey like the other brand did, the other company did, your competitor did. again, you're going to be at a disadvantage. You might get somebody to go on the date with you. Someone might be crazy enough to say yes, but
somebody who's desperate.
It's
the wrong one.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another one. Should I be creating long form or short form content? So I'll give you some context. This is an in-house marketer. This is not and they're creating content. Everybody says to create content. So you read blogs and just, I'm going to just create content. And then everybody struggles to write past 500 words. Now they're like, what else do I write about? And they're sending in this question.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's a bit counterintuitive to what we believe about
quantity,
the ways that people consume content, right? So people, you hear, it's one of those things that they say, like they are the experts. I don't know who they are, but you hear it all the time. Like they say people's attention span is only 10 seconds or 20 seconds. So you need to create a bunch of clips and a bunch of, short pieces of content. People aren't going to read this, long form blog post. They're not going to watch this 30-minute video or an hour video or a 3-hour training. You got to be, quick to the point, a bunch of, sound bites. And I think you see that work, but I also see the complete opposite side where people will sit down and watch, an hour video or an hour podcast, or they will read a comprehensive guide or download an ebook that's, 50 pages. I think the problem is when you're kind of towing the line between the two, right? So I think the more important thing, rather than ask yourself, do I need to create long form or short form? I think you need to look at the piece of content you're creating, who you're creating it for, and be very purposeful when you create that content in the terms of how is this going to be the most valuable? What's going to be the most, how is this going to be valuable for my audience? Which means what is the best way to explain this topic that I'm trying to explain, right? So when you're creating the content, if it's very short, if it's a yes or no question, somebody asks a very quick question and you can answer it in short form, great, short form. Right. If you're creating something that is supposed to be, as I mentioned earlier, a comprehensive guide on, whatever that topic may be, then do a really good job of laying it all out, mapping it out before you create the content, looking at each of the subjects within the content, and maybe they're breaking up some smaller chunks of, okay, what's going to be the best way to explain this? Maybe I need to make a video because this is more of a visual explanation, right? Or maybe I need to create an infographic because some of these topics are kind of hard to cover in text and, it's going to be a little bit boring. And so I think in that case, a lot of the times, especially in, B2B world, you're going to end up creating a lot of long form content. Because if you go in with the intent of, I'm going to thoroughly explain this topic,
sure,
the reason you're creating the content is because you believe your customer doesn't understand the topic. So how is it possible for you to do that in a short form, right? You're going to have to go over the top and kind of explain all of that. And the consumer, the audience is going to read which part they want to, it's going to resonate with them. But I think even with Google, right? People say you got to write long form content because it gives you more content in Google. I think that's true. But at the same time, Google is getting smarter and smarter and always focusing on providing the best user experience. And so I think by default, that's going to be more long form content that can be broken down into smaller chunks and is well organized. I think you organize it in smaller chunks, but you have the thoroughness of a long form piece, if that makes sense.
And I've been saying that to everyone as well. Mm-hmm. There's no point in creating 300, 500 word article if you're not a publication that's just spitting out
Which
news.
Was the old way to do it, right? It was like, you got to blog every day. So people were just creating content for the sake of creating content. But now every industry you could go Google the most obscure sort of idea, and there's probably a million results in Google search engine. So there's so much content out there. Now you have to stand out. And like you said, I don't think there's really a purpose of creating a 200 word or 500 word post unless it's a part of a larger series that can then be kind of strung together.
Got it. So that's the answer for number 2. We're going to try to do 3 per episode so we can keep it short and sweet.
Okay, we got time for one more.
The last one, actually, this goes right in well with the second question. It says, how do I get people to read my content?
Yeah.
I think that goes
go first.
I think that's exactly right. So you write all these pieces, you look at Google Analytics, there's no engagement, no one's seeing it. I would say if you really had a nice email list, you should actually try to send them an email with 2 or 3 articles that you've written so you can promote them. Obviously, social media would be one thing. Again, I'm being honest right now, 80% of your time should be spent on promoting the 20% of the content that you write, but everybody creates 80% time creating the content. Yep. barely promoting it. And then you get these kind of questions. How do I get people to read my content?
Yeah.
First of all, they'll get no organic results because there's not much depth to the content. And so, you're getting a few clicks here and there. It's just really not what you thought you were going to get out of this piece of content.
Yep.
It's a struggle.
Yeah, I think the problem is going through the motions, right? Is you see people, Gary Vee and Russell Brunson,
of course,
and these marketing guys, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to copy what they're doing, right? And you look at the wrong metrics. So you look at, well, Gary Vee posts 5 times a day to his social media, so I'm going to post 5 times a day to my social media,
and you lose the followers that you have because now you're spamming them.
Well, yeah, and you're missing the biggest point, which is the content, right? Correct. If you just look at
content,
the numbers,
is the variable. That's what Gary says.
Yeah, and you look at you read, you look at the blog and you just do a word count, and you're like, oh, this blog has 500 words and mine has 700 words, so why doesn't mine outrank that one? Or this guy posts, once a month and I post 5 times a day, so why don't I get more followers? The value is the content. So the content has to be helpful, it has to be valuable. Or none of it's going to work. So there's no real secret formula. There's sort of a blueprint you can follow, and I think it is important to look at those guys as the leaders and see, okay, what are they doing? How are they getting more people to read their content? Look at your competitors and see what they're doing, but look at the actual content itself. So it's just like we were talking about earlier. For the second question is, how long form versus short form. How do I get people to read it? Yes, you can follow the formula of, okay, create the content, create it in multiple formats, share it on multiple channels, promote it. At surface level, that will get you some more views. But what really helps that take off is engagement. And you don't get the engagement without valuable content. So it does fall back to that of, you can do all of these things, but you got to create value in the content. I would rather focus on quality over quantity and create, 10 pieces a year that get, hundreds of thousands of views versus hundreds of thousands of pieces that get 10 views.
And also, because you're intentional about creating the content, now you can run Google ads, long tail search ads. You can use that on Facebook to promote them. And that's a huge thing. Even just the posts that we create on social, people don't actually turn them into ads. If you're saying something that's a sales pitch of why somebody should do business with you in the form of a Facebook post, just don't post it. Only 100 people see them that are your followers, right? And only a small percentage of them ever saw it. Why not open that up to 1 million people that would see that sales pitch? If they're interested, they'll click on it and will now know about your brand. It's like building up that brand.
Yeah, and it's tough because you get both sides of it, right? You get some, and we struggle with this a little bit, even just between you and I, because you're always an action guy, right? Just move forward, get it done. And I sometimes tend to wait until things are perfect to get it done. So I think the answer is somewhere in between of, be very purposeful and intentful when you're creating the content. There should be a reason you create the content. And if you're halfway through whatever you're creating and you start looking at your plan to promote the content and you can't find the right channel or you can't justify spending money to promote it, then you got to ask yourself, why did I create the content in the first place, right? But at the same time, you can't do that forever and,
not produce anything.
Paralysis by analysis, right? And then you never produce anything. So I think that's the way to go about it, is that you should have a reason behind every piece of content. And if you believe that piece of content is valuable enough, then it should be worth you investing money to promote it or get people to share it on social platforms. But again, none of that's going to work the way that you want it to unless you have that value behind it. So yeah, that would be the answer. That answers the question of how do you get people to engage, read your content, engage the content. Well, I guess one thing you would say about the question was specifically about
how do I get people to read my content? Well, I guess it's like,
so
see my stuff.
About a blog or something like that. I mean, that it's maybe that was just the way they worded the question, but you should think about, is this the type of content people want to read? Because like you said, when someone's trying to reach out to you, phone might not work, email might not work, but something that's flashy and nice on Instagram might work. So you have to kind of look at how you're actually conveying that information as well, so that it aligns with your audience. And don't just make assumptions about your audience too. You have to look at the data and what if your content is actually working well. And I would just make different variations and see you can speculate all day, but make it into text, make it an infographic, make it a video, make it, series of pictures, whatever you need to be a podcast, and just see what takes off the most.
And even though it's just content, I think they still need to run ads against the content.
Yeah,
ads don't need to go to a landing page where they convert with a lead form. Again, everybody thinks that's the only way to run ads. And you and I always talk about how do we promote just the content for what it's worth. Just a content promotion, not necessarily one that, you're trying to get people to click and then immediately convert them into leads.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Well, we talk about that.
That's the brand part.
We talk about that all the time, of the idea of why one piece of content or one idea is only valuable if you're getting the traffic organically, right? It's like, why, this person is asking a question, how do I get more people to read my content? So we just talk about there's so much competition out there. You spend a couple of hours, maybe a couple of days, on and off, researching, thinking about, then writing and editing, and then finally posting a blog post that you believe is valuable to your audience. And then you just wait, and you move on to the next piece. Like, why not double down on that piece of content? And like you said, pay to promote it. I mean, you can spend money on Google Ads to drive traffic to that, rather than wait 6 months or 12 months to wait for Google to start ranking that content. Send traffic to it tomorrow and see how that, what's happening with that. And maybe you just learn something and make adjustments to that piece of content before you actually wait for it to rank. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be with the intent of creating a new lead or a new customer right away. It's the same way if someone was going to get to that traffic through organic search. Yeah, you can have some sort of a CTA on that, or you can remarket to those people. But the whole idea is that you're creating valuable content for your audience. And so if that was the intent in the first place, why not put a small budget on that piece of content and disperse it across?
I'm saying channels? Every content.
Yeah.
Every piece of content needs an advertising plan behind it, or don't create it. That's like I have to let people know this. They're just creating content, going through it, and knows, like, it's like almost anti-ads. I will never spend any money. I'm hoping that somebody, or I think you're not growing fast enough because you're not promoting enough. And what is marketing if there's no promotion?
Yeah.
Like, just go basics. Like, you're trying to promote something, then you're not promoting it. You're just putting things out there, hoping people will come pick up my flyers.
Yeah.
Nobody knows it's here.
Yeah.
So it's just so basic. But today we have to do that through Facebook ads or Google ads or remarketing or content discovery network, whatever that might be. You have to promote everything you create or don't create it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, basics, right? Then you wouldn't be asking questions like, what should I do? Should I do this? Create the content, promote it, and continue to promote it until you can figure out what's a good, like you said, make them go through that entire journey. Everything should be thought out, and you're advertising every step of the way. And then you'll see a bigger long-term effect on your business, not so much sort of figuring out, well, how do I get more people to buy a table? Mm-hmm. When you're missing out on the whole entire experience of what people do, even when they decide that they need a table, right? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good way to wrap this up. Thank you again for, submitting questions. I want to keep that open. Like we love getting these questions.
I love
this is our exciting part of our job.
Just like, we talked about with, how do you create content for your audience? I mean, we, can sit here and speculate all day about what we think our audience wants to know. But when we get those questions in, it, either validates that or makes us, say, okay, wait a minute, we got to go, back to the beginning and talk about this topic. So we love the questions coming in and keep them coming.
Yep, absolutely. And you know where to find us. Our website is oneims.com/podcast. There's a way to leave your voice. You can, your questions, there's even a way to leave voice question as well. So you can just speak it and we'll get them and we can incorporate that into our podcast. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Growth Marketers is brought to you by OneIMS, helping you reach new heights through integrated marketing. One world, one web, OneIMS.